Okay, so let's resume our lecture. So we talk about the pass by value, only the value of that particular specific or copy of that particular specific value is being passed to the method, and if we change the local copy of that particular specific variable, it is not going to affect the variable in the main method or the method which is originally called that particular specific method. Okay. On the other hand, when we talk about the pass by reference, so reference type variables, whether it is a string or a class or even array, is also a reference type variable. So when you talk, when you give a array or a class or a string to the method, that is passed by reference rather than passed by value. Okay. So reference of the variable is passed to the method rather than the value itself. It passes the reference of that particular specific variable, not the value itself. And what happens? So local changes in the reference will affect local changes, the changes that you are making in that particular specific reference within the method, that will also affect the original variable which has been passed to this particular specific method. So we will see that particular specific example here. So for example, I created an integer array, int my array 1 2 3 4 5. So that is an array that we have created inside the main method, and then we have a pass by reference method which receive an integer array, and then here in that particular specific method, what we are doing, we created an loop and we are adding 3 in the value of each and every element in the array. Okay. So let us start executing this particular specific program. Once we execute the first line of that line, it will create that particular specific integer array, and you know that it will create first a reference type variable, then it will create that particular specific array itself with the actual values 1 2 3 4 5, and then once we execute the assignment operator, assign, created the array, assign it to the reference variable. So it will create that particular specific link between these. Okay. Now this is a reference type variable which contains the reference of that particular specific integer array. In the next line, we are calling that particular specific method. So when we call this particular specific method, what it will do? It will create an reference type variable for the int array, that is the parameter. Okay, fine. Now we know that this particular specific value will come in. The value of this reference type variable, it comes as a value. Okay, it comes as a value. But what happened? Actually, it will create a relationship or connection between the actual array where this particular specific original my array variable is pointing. So now they are both pointing to the same array. Understand? The value of the reference type variable passed by value, but actually it is a reference, so it will pass the reference of the original array. Do you understand the point? Reference is passed by value, but reference is actually pointing towards the original array. So they are both pointing to the same array. Now we come back here and start executing that particular specific variable. Once we start that method, so we create a variable 0 I, then what we need to do? We need to check the condition. Condition is true. We are increasing the value, add the index value 0 by 3. So what it will do? It will change the first value in the original array. You understand? Is it clear, this point? Because both of them pointing to that one. So here array is this one, add the index value 0 go and increase the value by 3. It was 1, 1 plus 3, 4, that will become 4. What did it do? It will increase the value of I. So, I will value of I will become 1 rather than 0. Again check the condition, condition is true. Condition is true, again add the index value 1, go and increase the value by 3, 2 plus 3, 5. Again increase the value of I, value of I will become 2. Then increase the index value 2, change the value, 3 plus 3, 6. Increase the value of I become 3, add the index value 3, go and change the value. So, once that particular specific loop has finished, this particular specific value has become 5, this loop is finished. So, that execution of the method is finished. Once the method is finished, the local variables int, array, reference type variable or I, delete it from the memory. Garbage collection, automatic garbage collection by the system or by the memory, by the programming system, remove it. Yes, fine. But the point is, if we look at that, the original array which contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it has changed. And now, if we try to print that particular specific array in the main method, it will print 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, whenever we are passing by reference, the original variable will be affected by the changes in the local variable, local method, in the method of the local variable. If we are changing making any changes in the local variables, that will affect the original variable inside the main method or the calling method. Is it clear? By reference and by value. And this is another way to get the values out of the method. Either you return an array where you have multiple values, or you can pass a array and change it inside the main method, and that will be available to the calling method as well. Okay. Any questions so far? String is immutable. String is a class type variable, it is passed by reference, but the point is immutable. String is always read only. Whenever you say string s is equal to something, it create that particular specific string reference type and assign it to the variable s. But next time when you say s is plus equal to this, you are adding concatenating another string into that one. So, that is not going to change the reference or add the value in the existing string or object, no. It will take the actual current value, make the new value that you want to concatenate or combine them together, combine them and create a new variable or new instance of that particular specific string and assign to the s. And of course, the previous one will be automatically deleted, but it is create every time you assign a new string, actually it is creating a new object or new instance of that particular specific class. So, that is why when you are passing the strings to the methods, it is not affecting the original one, and I will show you how. So, for example, we have a string fundamentals of the programming, and when you define that one, it will create that particular specific reference type variable, create that particular specific string object. Once the string object is created, it will assign that to the, make a connection between the reference type variable and the actual object of the string. And once you pass that particular specific variable, it will come down here, and then you say that string, yes, it will pass the value, it will create the connection. Now, according to our understanding, what we do, once we execute that particular specific line, it will change the things here. That is normal understanding is, but we need to understand that string is an immutable. It is a read only. Whenever you say s is equal to or the string type variable is equal to something, it create a new string and assign that value. So, what will happen here? It will create a new string in the method and assign that value to this variable, removing that connection. So, that is why the original variable is not going to be changed. String is a bit, exception, you can say that, only because strings are immutable. So, now we have changed the local variable, but it is not going to affect the original variable of the string type. So, this is the one, because reference, we are always saying that string is a reference type variable, and then you go into the lab and try to do the things, and, oh, why it is not changing? It should be changing because we are changing in the method. That is the reason. It will create a new object and assign that value to the local variable, and it is not going to change the original variable, because it is an immutable read only things. Whenever you are doing something with the strings, it create a new object and assign that value to the variable. The previous object is being deleted, but here, because it is still accessible, that particular specific object is still accessible in the main method. So, that is why it is not deleted. Okay. But now, once we have finished that particular specific loop, this specific method, because we have finished it, it will delete this part. Any questions? No? So, that is the string is immutable. Mutable mean that we can change its value. Immutable mean we cannot change the value. Whenever we try to change the value, it will create a new object and assign that value. Okay. So, lambda expressions, this is our more to write a very small method type of thing. Okay. So, this mean that we have an input, some value, that is just like a parameter, and then we have one expression. If we have one expression, we can write like this. If we have multiple expressions, we can write like this. But remember that in the lambda expression, that particular specific method is ending with the semicolon, because this is considered as a one expression, one statement. Whether we have multiple statements within that particular specific curly brackets, but it is considered as a expression or one statement. So, that is why we have the after the closing curly brackets, we have the semicolon. Okay. So, we can have methods over there, or we can have a simple expression. Normally, it is used to write a very small things. So, remember that we have the list, and then we had that lambda expressions over there. So, we have a 4 int I, that is simple thing that we are trying to print all the list elements inside it. So, we can also have list item dot for each. Now, we are telling that list integer console dot write list int. So, actually it is taking from that particular specific list. If we have 5 elements, they take each element one time, each element, the first element, second element, third element, fourth element, and execute that particular specific lambda expression. The first element will become list integer when it is executing for the first time. Second element will become the list integer when it is executing second time, and it will just printing on the screen, just a simple expression. Okay. Lambda expression, it is printing. So, this list integer is going to be changed every time, first element, second element, third element, fourth element, whenever it is for each iteration. Here, if we are having the multiple statements in that particular specific lambda expression, then you can have to write that particular specific brackets. So, we are printing the things, we are multiplying that particular specific number with 2, and again printing the list. Okay. Access lists, I think that we have already talked about in the and then here, if you look at that particular specific thing, we have a print method. This is a method static void print integer a and then console.write.line a, that whatever is coming as an input, this method is going to print that particular specific value. So, what is happening here for int list dot for each, and then we are giving the print only the method name. So, what it will do, it will take the first element, give as an input to this print method and execute that particular specific method. Okay. Second time it will take the second element from that list, give that particular value as a integer, as a input value to the print and execute. We also have the delegates. Delegates mean there are the methods without the name. There is no name here, we just say delegate. So, we can only, and we call them anonymous methods without any name. We can only use that particular specific method here in that particular specific expression, that is it. Lambda expression again, these are called. So, these are the methods used in a specific situation without any name, or we can use the method name like that. It is calling the method. So, I will just give you, these are different flavors which exist. Okay. Pass by value reference, we can change that particular specific behavior. We passing an integer float, and we can say that we want to pass it by reference, not as a value. That is also possible. For that we have a ref keyword. So, ref keyword help us to change the pass by value to pass by reference of type. So, what happened here? So, I am just said int num, int number 2, we have two integer values, and then we say that swap numbers, we are swapping those numbers, and then we have reference 1, reference 2. Actually, when you say ref num1, it is going to pass the reference of that address of that variable to the method. So, when we have the address, actually we are going to change the original variable inside the main method or the calling method. And then here again we are using the ref, we are not receiving the integers, because if we are receiving the integers are 4-byte value. So, it will receive a 4-byte value. No, here we say we are going to receive a reference of the integer type variable, ref, understand. So, that will change that particular specific pass by value behavior. So, what happened here? So, if we just try to like here I say n1 is equal to n2. Remember that if we have two variables, we want to swap them, we need a temporary variable. So, we have a temporary variable n is equal to n1, n1 is equal to n2 and n2 is equal to n. So, we have changed the values from one variable to the other, we change their values. So, once we have changed the values, we have changed these values inside the method, and when we try to print the values inside the main method, it is actually printing the -71 for the num1 and this 56 for the num2. So, they have swapped the values. So, we have changed in the method, but they have actually affected the original variables, because we are passing the reference, not the values, addresses. Is it clear? So, up to this point, if you have any questions, because now we are talking about some methods which have the same names, but with different parameters lists. We call it a method overloading, using the same method, but doing different things. Pass by reference string, pass by reference this integer array, they are exactly the same. Static void, pass by reference, pass by reference, the names are same. Here we are passing the integer array, here we are passing the string, and they are doing two different things. When we to pass the arrays, it is increasing every element by 3, here it is changing the value of the string. The methods are same, names are same, but they have different parameters. We call it a method overloading. We are calling the same method, but with different parameters, so it will effectively do different things for us. So, defining a method in more than one forms, that is called method overloading. We are defining a same method in different forms. Method names are same, but have different parameter list. My method, my method, my method, all are my method. In the first we have one integer and one character. In the second one we have one integer only parameter. In the third one we have one character parameter. In the second one we have one character and one integer, but the order is different. Here int and character. In the fourth one we have the character and int. The order of the parameter is different. That is also acceptable. The first parameter is integer and second parameter is character. First parameter is character and second parameter is integer. So, the compiler can look into that particular specific scenario, and yes, it is going to call the appropriate method, which is going to be. Is it clear? So, that is called this phenomena is called the method overloading. The name of the method is exactly the same, but the number of parameters or the order of the parameters or the type of the parameter is different. For example, the second and third, one parameter, but they have different types. If we pass the character, it will call this particular specific method. If we pass the integer, it will call this particular specific method. Now, in the first and the fourth one, they have both same number of parameters, two parameters, but the order is different. The first one is integer, second one is character in the first one. In the fourth one, the first one is character and the second one is integer, and if we call this method with the first character and the second integer, it will always call the fourth method, not the first one. So, the compiler understand based on the parameters and the type of the parameters or the order of the parameters that which method it need to be called. They have the same names, but which method is called. We call them the method overloading, and that happened at the compile time. That happens at the compile time. When you are compiling the program, it will look into the type of the parameters, order of the parameters and the number of parameters, and accordingly it will call the appropriate method with the same name. At the compile time, when you are compiling your program, it is telling you, okay, which method is being called. Again, cannot overload based on the return type. We cannot say that int num character, and because they have different type of the return types, so that's method overloading. No, that is not allowed. Only one method can be remain here. So, we can only overload the methods on the type of the parameters if they are same number of parameters are there. Number of parameters, 1 parameter, 2 parameter, 3 parameter, 4 parameter, yes, we can do that, or order of the parameters based on the type, yes, but not on the return type. We cannot overload the methods on the return type. Is it clear? Not allowed. So, can overload methods different number of parameters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they have different number of parameters, maybe all of the same type, does not matter, but different number of parameters, or they can have different number of types of parameters, or they can have a different order. So, these are the three ways to do the method overloading. First one, number of parameters, 2 parameters, 3 parameters, 4 and 5, and looking at the name of the method, we can say that it is going to find out the maximum between 2 numbers, maximum between 3 numbers, maximum between 4 numbers and maximum between 5 numbers. Or maybe we can give an array of integers and find out the maximum. Yes, it is also possible. We can write another method here, fifth method, which is going to return an integer value max, and it receives an integer array as an input and find out the maximum number in between in that array. Understand? Different number of parameters. Second one, this is a different number of parameters again, max, int num and 1, int and 2. So, they are different. So, whenever we are calling those methods, we need to provide the parameters. If we are providing 2 parameters, it will call this method. If we are providing 3 parameters, it will call the right one parameter. methods on the right. Based on the number of parameters, it will automatically call the right method to be executed. And look at that, they have different thing, implementation, because finding the maximum number among the 3 numbers, among the 2 numbers, among the 4 numbers, among the 5 numbers, they have different codes. But they are doing the same thing. So, we write the method with the same name. Again, greet and greet, they are both methods which are greeting the user. Here without any parameter, 0 parameter, it is calling this particular specific method. 1 parameter, it is calling this particular specific method. Again, method overriding based on the number of parameters, 0 parameter or 1 parameter. Clear? Any questions so far? No? Method overriding based on the different types. They are all finding out the maximum number among the parameters. First one is finding the maximum number between the integers, second one between the long values, between the float values and the double values. And of course, I need to have that long, float and double, copy paste. It should return an appropriate return value as well. This one should be long, this one return value should be float, and this return value should be double, not integer, because values are different that we are trying to, and then it will return the maximum value. So, 2 numbers and returning the maximum value. Now, the types are different. So, still it is going to call appropriate method based on the type of the parameters. And then of course, when you say that is a method overloading for the different types of parameters, int 1 and double 1. So, we need to have that particular specific double over there as well in those methods. Clear? Any questions? No? Order of the parameters, int and character, or character and int, again they are considered 2 different methods based on the order in which the parameters are being arriving, 2 parameters, but in different orders. So, again that is something. We can also write the generic methods or generic types. Remember that we say list, and then in the bracket we have that one when we talk about the lists and the array lists, the generic collection types. So, we can create a list of integers, we can create a list of doubles, we can create a list of characters, create a list of strings. So, again now I am writing a method, I say swap and then say t, reference t value and reference t value. Now, say t is equal t temp is equal to value 1, value 1 is equal to value 2, value 2 is equal to value 3 temp, and then it is going to be. So, now we can give the integer value, now we can give the double value, now we can give the long value, now we can give the byte value, short value, integer type of course, or numerical type of course. Even we can do with the character as well, because character is also kind of a integer value or implemented as an integer value, not string, we can't do that, but numerical value or the character type we can do that. We can swap the values. Can we do for the boolean as well? Could be changing the values, swapping the values between that. So, now these method overloading is done at the compile time, when you are compiling the program. When you say run the play button, actually it is first it will do the compilation process. So, based on the number of parameters and so on, it will look into that and call that particular specific method. But this method overloading is being done, or it is not the what you can say that the method overloading, it is more like writing a generic code. Now, we do not know the values of the parameters. So, at the runtime it will decide that what that particular specific parameter value is. For example, we say int num1 in this one and reference swap. So, it will call that particular method. There is only one method swap, one method, but these values, the type of these values t t is being defined at the runtime. It is coming as integer value. So, what will happen here? So, that will be replaced by the t, integer value at runtime. Again, now we need to understand runtime when we are executing the program, and compile time when we are compiling the program. When we are compiling, we are converting that into the intermediate code, and then intermediate code to the binary code. That is a compile time. When it is executing in the program, when it is running, start executing, this happens at the executing runtime time, because in the very next line we can say that float f1 and f2 is equal to some values and call the same method. If it is a compile time, it will only accept t, because static, it will become static, it will not become dynamic thing. So, if I write something like this long in the very next two lines, then it will automatically replace this t with the long, and that is happening at the runtime when we are executing the program. Remember that thing. Generic things are happened at the runtime. What will be replaced by with these t? Because what we do at the compile team, that is not going to change at the runtime. It is remain same. And if at the compile time we have changed this t with the integer, now we can't change afterward this t with the long, or t with the double, or t with the byte. So, that happens at the runtime dynamically, and this is generic. It is not overloading, but it is a method which can receive a dynamic parameter, and that is decided at the runtime, and based on that it will can do different things. Is it clear? Again, now we say byte, it will change that thing with the byte. Double, all these t's dynamic parameters, they will be are going to change with the double. So, at the runtime it is going to change that things and execute the functions. Any questions so far? So, in the next class we talk about the classes, what are the objects, we also talk about the structure, and at the end of the lecture we are going to talk about the multi-dimensional arrays. We talk about only a list of the arrays. Now, we talk about the multi-dimensional arrays.